entitled, "Do Billionaires Really Give a Rat's Ass About Woke Issues?" And I think this is a really important question, and I think it's important for Americans to understand this. There's actually a word, or actually it's two words, a phrase, to describe what's going on here. And I'll get to that in just a minute, but just, you're going to want to hear this. We have billionaires funding the Republican Party. I mean, hugely. Without billionaire funding in the GOP, they would shrivel up and blow away. And many Americans are wondering why. Why do billionaires believe, for example, or do we really believe, for example, that a fossil fuel billionaire gives a rat's ass about whether a high school student in Florida learns that there are gay people in our world? Or that African Americans in Tennessee were once enslaved? Why do billionaires care about this? American billionaires, I mean, after all, they live in a very different world than you and me. They don't worry about crime. They live in gated mansions with private security 24/7. They don't need to interact with the riffraff like you and me when they travel. They're driven wherever they go in bulletproof limousines or on helicopters, and they fly private jets, so they don't even have to go through airport security or show their ID. I had lunch with a near billionaire a few years ago. He rented an entire restaurant for an entire day just so four of us could have a quiet lunch while his driver and security detail patrolled the nearby parking lots and empty streets. Dinner at one of the half-dozen billionaire-friendly restaurants in New York City, yes, there are some, typically starts around $800 a person, and that doesn't include tips, taxes, or drinks. The prices really doesn't reflect the cost of the food or even the service and the rent. It's to keep out the riffraff. Some of these restaurants, in fact, that cater to billionaires in New York City, and not just New York City, by the way, this is also true of Los Angeles and New York. Some of them don't even have names on the door. In fact, one of them in New York, the door is hidden behind a painting inside an office building, a real high-end office building. They have unlisted phone numbers. Their kids don't attend public schools or colleges. Their servants, their masseuses, their nannies, their mistresses, and their chefs often live on the grounds of their estates. When they vacation, they fly private jets to their private yachts that have enough staterooms to accommodate 100 of their closest friends. Just ask Clarence Thomas if you have any curiosity or doubts about that. So why do people like this give a damn about whether a trans girl wants to compete in public high school sports? Their kids don't go to public high schools. Why do they care whether a 10-year-old girl who gets raped by her uncle in Ohio can get an abortion? Why do they fund politicians making loud noises about the horrors of white children learning that their ancestors enslaved African American people? Why do they care about the rights of those kids' parents to own semi-automatic weapons? None of this stuff has any impact whatsoever on the lives of these billionaires. Why do they fund it? Why would any morbidly rich person in America give a damn about these so-called Republican social issues? Similarly, why would American industry favor politicians dedicated to a law in Texas that requires that this be posted in every public elementary school in type large enough to be read anywhere in the class, quote, "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, nor his manservant, nor his maidservant, nor his ox, nor his ass"? Do they really want second graders taught about infidelity, gay and straight rape, and bestiality? Or, "I am the Lord thy God, a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers upon the children unto the third and fourth generations of them that hate me"? Do they really want school children taught about the thousands of people in the Bible who were slaughtered by God or at God's direction? Do wealthy businessmen who rarely even go to church fund politicians who demand these commandments? I mean, why? Actually, it turns out there's a very rational, albeit cynical, answer. American billionaires and the corporations that make them rich share a couple of big concerns that are well served by Republicans' ongoing culture wars and their embrace of fascist behavior and ideology. In fact, there's an entire field of academic scholarship dedicated to examining this dynamic. It's called diversionary warfare. When Henry V took the British throne in 1415, Many of the country's noblemen didn't recognize him because his father, Henry IV, had usurped the throne from its rightful holder, Richard II. So Henry quickly declared war on France, and within months he had succeeded at the Battle of Agincourt, and the country rallied around him. In April of 1982, Margaret Thatcher was facing a crisis of confidence after gutting the nation's social safety net and privatizing the railroads and things. So what did she do? She had and unemployment was at a record high. Her numbers were in the total tank. So what did she do? She declared war against Argentina around the Falklands. 255 British troops died, only 3 Argentinians. But hey, they won the war. On October 23rd, 1983, terrorists blew up a Marine barracks in Lebanon, killing 241 Americans and making Ronald Reagan, whose response was to cut and run, he pulled all our troops out, look like a coward and impotent. So taking a cue from Thatcher, 2 days later, Reagan bombed and invaded the tiny Caribbean island of Grenada, saying he was going to save 800 medical students. After that, his popularity numbers shot up. He had been below both Walter Mondale and John Glenn, his 2 most likely opposition candidates in the 1984 election. He had been way behind them. But after his war on Grenada, boom, his numbers went right up and he won the 1984 election. Most recently in 2001, George W. Bush. Nobody thought he was a legitimate president. His brother knocked 90,000 African Americans off the voting rolls in Florida, and he only won by 537 votes. So what does he do? 9/11 provides him with an opportunity to attack Iraq and Afghanistan, become a wartime president, even though Iraq and Afghanistan had nothing to do with 9/11. It was plotted in Germany and Florida, and it was run out of New York and Boston. But hey, it got him reelected. So this is what's going on. These Republicans are funding the culture wars to keep Republicans in power, because Republicans are going to give them what they want. I mean, this is an old song, right? This goes on for a long way back. So now we stand on a precipice. Are we going to continue to allow global warming to kill our people? Are we going to continue to let our teachers be intimidated by Nazis? Are we going to perpetuate the slaughter of our children from the highest gun ownership rates in the country? Are we going to keep young people chained to student debt? Are we going to let corporations continue to block workers from forming unions? Are we going to force American women into second-class status? Are we going to maintain police systems that routinely murder black people? Are we going to continue to look the other way while Republicans gut Social Security? Or are we going to create a world that works for all? It's up to us.